Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Mike Phillips, and I am your host for the Leadership Toolkit. As you know, we get together every Wednesday right about noon. We've got a special time for a special episode, an extremely special guy that I'm bringing on with me today. We have great conversations, collaborative conversations, organic conversations with people that are in different verticals of business so they can share their wins. You can learn from that. They can share some of their fails because we all know, as much as we may hate to admit it sometimes, we can learn from that also. And so there's an opportunity for you to take notes and sit here and learn and grow with us. And today I've got an absolutely phenomenal guest who's also a good friend of mine, Mr. Johnny Joy. Hey, Johnny, how you doing today, man?
What is going on, my friend? It's great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for making the time. I know you've got so much cool stuff going on, and just you and I have talked for a little bit. I said, hey, you should come on the show, and kind of had to nip and tuck and move and do all the stuff. And so I'm very grateful that we're able to connect on this, man.
Yeah, man. I would have thought that a couple of years ago that my resume would be stay-at-home dad, but now with a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old, I've got mornings, but the meat of this show happens exactly at nap time. So anyone that's ever had kids understands the value and how you cannot falter with nap time for an infant. So thank you for
Absolutely.
for adjusting the time.
Absolutely, man. And so if you would do me a favor and just fill in our audience here about what it is that you do. You have a very cool app, a very cool company that you're the founder of SobriTree. And that's from personal experience, your personal journey. So if you just take 2 or 3 minutes and kind of delve into that, and then we're going to get into the meat of the show. I'd love to hear more about this.
Sure, thank you. So for a lot of people, they have known me for the past 8 years as being on Mountain Country Radio,
Mhm.
and I was one of the morning show hosts there. And about a month ago, it was just decided that it was time for me to focus solely on sobriety. And what sobriety is a totally comprehensive app for recovery and addiction. Because I had a very very long and tumultuous relationship with alcohol and pharmaceuticals. And luckily, by the grace of God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, I was able to get out and survive. So that's what I'm passionate about, and what sobriety is just a way for you can find recovery and sobriety that works the way that you want it to. I figured there's a lot of people I need to help, and I can't. I'm just one guy, but I can make a resource that can bring us all together and get people out of the situations that are taking too many lives and destroying too many families and opportunities and careers, everything. So that's what sobriety is, and we'll get into that. Me personally, I'm a fourth generation native of Colorado Springs. Just moved up to the Flying Horse neighborhood. It is gorgeous. It is dumping snow right now. This is pretty impressive. So I love Colorado. I've lived up and down the Front Range. I've been to 43 of the 50 states. I've been all over Europe, Central America, the Caribbean, Mexico. I love to travel. I love food. Like I said, I've got a beautiful wife of going on 7 years. We've been together 9, and I've got 2 beautiful little girls, Kennedy, who is 4, and Ellie Rose, who is 7 months old yesterday. So that's the cliff notes.
That's absolutely fantastic, man. I'm really excited to get into more conversation, I'm really excited for you and where you're headed. I think, I've seen some of the stuff come up that you're talking about with sobriety and some of the things that are going on. And one of the key points when you and I were exchanging emails to talk about the show, and we said, hey, let's get together and talk about leadership and have some tangible, actionable discussion. One of the things that you said stood out just above all else to me. And you said one of the most important things about leadership is to do it with a servant's heart.
Yep.
And I think that's a really powerful statement. Can you take a minute and just expand on that? On, what can people, if you're somebody, because you've had a lot of different leadership experiences, certainly in business, certainly from
Yes.
traveling all over the place, you've engaged with different types of leaders. We were talking right before we went live about a different type of leader that maybe didn't work and, or didn't work for you. We all
Yeah.
have that. We all engage with people that have different leadership styles and different leadership tactics. So when you're saying, hey, someone's got to lead with a servant's heart, how do you start that approach? How would you advise somebody to start that approach?
Well, I think the term leadership, especially on social media now, is thrown around so haphazardly. Everyone says, well, I want to be a leader, and they tend to more identify with being a manager. Being a
Okay.
manager, I think, is kind of leading from the back and telling people how to get things done and how to do things. You need to do this. Whereas a leader is going to show people how it's done. And in the world of leadership, for me, you've got to be passionate about what you're trying to lead. If you're not passionate about what you're trying to lead, people will not follow. You're just going for a walk.
Right.
You're going for a walk by yourself, nonetheless. And so to lead with a servant's heart for me in the realm of addiction recovery, it's something I know, and it's something I'm very passionate about because nothing to me is better. No paycheck will ever match the experience when somebody messages me that I may have not heard back from for a year, and they say, "Hey, Johnny, I just celebrated a year," you know, and it's one of those things where when things go good, I love to be able to give the credit back to them because they did the work. I was able to plant some seeds that they were able to tend to on their own.
Sure.
And obviously, when things go bad, I've got to be able to take the blame. So do people relapse? Yeah, people relapse, and it's tough because you want everything to work under your stewardship. But the greatest thing I can do is try and lead by showing people what I went through, what it's like, and that you actually care. That I'm not in this thing for a profit. Of course, we're all in whatever we're doing. We're giving part of our life away, part of our time away.
Sure.
And so of course we need to make money. But if, as you know, if you ever go into business, especially for yourself, with the idea first of making money, then just quit because that's not how it's going to get done. If you go into a business as an entrepreneur or whatever business you find yourself in, where you're climbing up towards a leadership position, the more value you bring to the people under your lead, the more value it's going to bring to you financially, personally, spiritually, emotionally.
Sure. No, and I think that's really powerful. You hit on a few things there. One of the interesting things, and I've obviously I've had a lot of conversations with different people that they say, hey, management and leadership, it's two different things, right? Management's more about the title, leadership's more about the tasks, right, so to speak. And you said something that I found really unique. I haven't heard someone say this before, but as a manager, they're leading from the back. And the moment you said that, I thought to myself, it's like being on the dog sled, right? You're on the dog sled, going, "Hey, mush, mush, we got to get going." You're
Yeah.
the manager at the back, trying to mush the people forward to get things moving and to get things going. And you said, you have to show people how it's done. It's really important. And I sit here, sometimes I'll look down because I sit here and I'll take notes. And one of the things that you said too, and there's no replacement for genuine caring. I think that's so valuable when it comes to leadership, actually genuinely caring about the success of other people, and especially coming from a background where you're talking about SobriTree with, leading people through addiction, or to
Hmm.
to navigate through addiction. Um, and speaking of that, I don't know if we said at the beginning, you're going on 10 years.
10 years of sobriety. Yeah, that'll be March 14th, which, yeah, I mean, again, I should not be here. I mean, medically, I should not be here. I mean, I was to the point where my organs were shutting down. I was hospitalized 5 different times. I went through 4 different rehabs. I've been in county detox 3 times, hospitalized 5 times. I mean, it was, and I'll never compare, my trauma and my experience to anyone else because that was my experience.
Sure.
But I know enough, and having worked with hundreds of people and spoken to thousands over the past decade, that we all have a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
That mine was, it's all trauma based. It's all, there's something that's going on between our ears here that isn't quite making sense, and so we pick. I picked booze and pills. Some people pick, working out, or they pick food, or they pick gambling, or they pick sex, or whatever it is. And I was actually taught to be the leader that I am in this industry, for whoever wants to follow, kind of what I'm doing, by a gentleman in Las Vegas. I was at a personal development conference, and there was people there. Like the keynotes were Tony Robbins and and you know, Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson, excuse me.
Branson. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Kiyosaki was there. I mean, some serious thought leaders. And middle of the day, there was a guy, and this is 20,000 people of us all crammed into the Mirage. And this guy gets up on stage. And he's got a voice that's even more raspy than mine. And I was like, I'm just gonna go get a bottle of water or something. I don't care who this guy is. And he's up on stage and he says, and here I am, just a former drunk from Colorado, a millionaire, speaking to all of you. And I stopped in my tracks. And I said, this guy just told 20,000 people that he was an alcoholic. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. But yeah, he's a millionaire and he lives in Colorado. I should probably get a hold of this guy. And so I found him at the end of the day, and we're still great friends this day. His name's Tom Chenault. He lives up in Niwot, Colorado, and he's as good as they come. And when I asked him, I said, why would you tell everybody that you're an alcoholic? You know, as somebody, you're obviously a millionaire, you're doing quite well. And he said, because everybody is touched by addiction, everybody. And it was at that moment that I said, oh my God, my purpose in life, and I knew this then, I just happened to have a really cool job in radio that I wasn't really willing to give up at the time. I knew it at that exact moment, though. I said, this is my mission in life, is to let everybody know that there is a way. There's a way to get out of this thing.
That is so powerful. So when was that? You said, how long ago was that you connected with him?
Gosh, I'm going to say that was I was probably 3 years into my sobriety. So about 7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So when you started this journey, because I want to talk a little bit about self-accountability and self-leadership, something that I think is so valuable, because we talked at the very beginning, like, you got to do it with a servant's heart. You have to, if you're going into leadership, it is to serve people. It is to care about people. And so some of that, I think, comes with just being in harmony with who we are, but being in harmony with ourselves and knowing, like what you're saying here, you're saying, hey, I realize this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, right? This is the thing. And so if you get in alignment with yourself and what it is that you're chasing, I mean, you said it, it's easier to serve people that way. Go back in time even before that. Do you know what was it that allowed you to start this sort of self-leadership and self-accountability journey? And let's talk about that a little bit, if you're okay with it. Like, I mean, 10 years ago is what, 2014?
Yeah, well, it was officially, so we're at 9.5 years about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, I tried to get sober over and over and over, and it wasn't happening. Oh, I've got my little toddler trying to join me with her with her tablet right now. I apologize.
No, bring her in, man.
Yeah.
What's she need? We got to fix it. This is real life.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Hey, Kennedy, come here. I want you to say hi to a lot of people. All right. Can we pause this real quick? She's watching an educational program. I want you to all meet my why.
That's the why. Hello.
Yeah. Can you say hi, Kennedy? Hi. This is Kennedy Julianne. She's 4 years old. Just picked her up from preschool, and she has never had to see me the way I was. Talk about gratitude.
That's good. That's good.
She only knows me as silly, goofy dad. So, sweetheart, I'm doing a meeting right now. Can you go back upstairs with your Beba until I'm done? Is that okay?
No, I'll Play-Doh real quiet.
You play with Play-Doh real quiet? Okay.
I like real quiet. That works out.
Yeah, exactly. Playing with Play-Doh instead of a tablet, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so 10 years ago, and we're talking about what worked.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the hospital again with a blood alcohol content of 0.54, and if you know what BACs are, not 0.054, 0.54. Like that should be dead.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I was laying in Lutheran Medical again, up in Denver, and I had lost my sister 21 years ago to a fentanyl overdose. That's when fentanyl was more of a prescription than anything. And I was laying in the hospital bed, and I remember my mom coming in and saying, well, I'm going to have to bury my other child. And I thought to myself, like, this is, she doesn't understand. No one understands what I'm going through. I have the right mindset as I'm laying in a hospital bed at the 0.54 BAC. And then suddenly everyone was out of the room. Everyone was out of the room, and I could hear the heart monitor. And I remember staring up directly at the lights. And as clearly as you and I are talking right now,
Sure.
I heard a voice say, "It's done now." I said, "Not in 10 minutes, not in a minute."
No, on the lid.
What's that? The lid? Oh, there you go. Not in 10 minutes, not in 1 minute. It's done now. And
I
I
got the
remember,
goosebumps when you're saying
yeah.
that.
And I clicked the nurse's call button, and they came in. I said, I'm ready to go to detox. I'm ready to go. And they said, well, we're gonna have to wait a little bit because your blood alcohol has to come down a little bit. You're still kind of a medical flight risk.
Emergency. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I spent 5 days at West Pine in Denver doing medical detox. The most uncomfortable physical, mental time I've ever had in my entire life. There's no question, but they kept me safe. They kept me from having seizures. It was a medical detox. It wasn't meant to be comfortable. There was no way to
Sure.
do this comfortably. And the very, very first thing I did when I got out, I mean, I was shaking uncontrollably. I was throwing up blood. I mean, the whole deal, as bad as it could get. The first thing I did when I got out, I got back to the Springs and went and got into therapy. And I'd tried AA and I'd tried rehab and I'd tried all these different things. And met a guy named Dr. Gary Forrest, and he still practices a little bit today. And he was known as kind of the alcohol guru, a leader in his profession. And I remember I sat down in this big, his office was straight out of the 70s, you know, still had like the dark oak everywhere with like the olive green, avocado green furniture.
I was going to say it was either avocado green or harvest gold stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh, and there's harvest gold in there too, of course. Many leather bound books. But he had this giant chair. And I remember I had like with the rivets that go all the way around it, you know, like little metal rivets.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah, and I was sitting there with my arms. I felt all these, like it was all tore up there, and then up here by the headrest it was all tore up. I was like thinking I was cooler than most. I said, "Hey Doc, you need to get yourself a new chair." And he goes, "No." He's like, "All those tears you feel are from all the people that are super unique like you that are so nervous about taking control of their life because they've just been picking and picking." And he left it just like that to remind people. And so the very first thing he said, and this goes back into the self-accountability piece, he said, "When are you going to pull your head out of your ass?" And I remember I just sat there thinking, like, how dare you? How dare you say that to me? And he was absolutely right. You know, and we had a relationship that lasted for a little while, you know, and I've gone on to have him introduce me at speaking events, which is just the coolest thing. I remember him telling me like how he was doing all these speaking events at all these conferences. And then before I knew it, a few years later, he's inviting me to speak at these conferences and he's introducing me. And I'm watching all these things unfold in my life. And it all boiled down to me taking out accountability of saying, I need to remove my head from my backside. I had to, because it all came down to the fact that I was making the decisions. Yes, life happened to me, but how I was reacting to it was my responsibility, and I was not reacting to it very well.
Wow, man. What's crazy, I remember reading something this morning that said, you know, it said something along the lines, I think it was on Instagram. I was going through and it says, hey, we can't always choose what happens to us, right? But we can choose what happens within us and how we react to that.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that it's like, that's the linchpin. And what's crazy to me is just talking about like the personal growth and the individual accountability for him to look at you and say, hey, pull your head out. And by the way, there's all of this deterioration and all of this frustration, this fidgeting, this anxiety that's happening right behind you. And I have to imagine, like, once he said that, then all of a sudden it becomes real, right? You're like, oh man. Okay. Yeah. So how does thinking about that when we're talking about, because it does take some real self accountability to be in a leadership role. Like the first person you got to lead is yourself. I firmly believe that. I have to be able to lead myself before I can lead anybody else. What's changed from that point 10 years ago, Johnny, to now? How do you hold? I mean, one of them you showed us, right? little Kennedy, right? That's one way that helps keep us accountable. I know I have 3 kids, and that's one of those things that it's like I want everything better for them than what I had. But what are some of the things that may have changed, or how do you continue to hold yourself accountable today, almost 10 years later?
I realized that my sobriety very quickly was not just about me. it was my opportunity to help as many people as often as I could, wherever I could, whenever I could. And when I took that role on and realized that, for me, be able to be open about it and say, look, this is who I was. This is not who I am. This is who I was. And if this is who you are and you want to move on from that place, I can help you. And if maybe I'm not a fit for you, there's lots of people that are. Um,
It's crazy.
but it just came. It's one of those things that you can overestimate what you can do in a year, which most people do, especially with social media now. We all just say, "Hey, I'm going to get a yacht in a year." It's like that's not how it works, unless you win the lotto, and then you'll end up broke if you're buying a yacht. But you
It's an
overestimate.
investment.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
overestimate what you'll do in a year, but you'll underestimate what you can do in a decade or two. And the first time I heard that was about 9 years ago, as Tony Robbins had said that actually. And
Yeah.
now I look back and I'm like a decade later, because of the choices I've made and the ways I've been able to help others and roles of leadership I've gotten myself into, whether it's from officiating weddings to speaking at hospitals to doing things online to privately coaching people, being on the radio, having a good time, which is ironic because it was a country radio station where I was talking about bourbon and beer on every
Right.
single song. But it's a trust thing as well, and that's one of the biggest things about leadership is if people don't trust you and you're not genuine about what your intentions are, again, it will fall apart very, very quickly. And I know there's a lot of people that watch me. I've got, I don't know, 50,000 some odd followers on my Facebook page.
Hmm.
There's a big segment, and as tragic as it is, that's waiting to watch me fall, as most leaders will experience, because a lot of people don't want to put in the self work. They don't want to put in the self accountability. They don't want to say, I'm at fault. I take blame. Or congratulations, you all did amazing. They don't understand that leadership role. So when they see somebody excelling and becoming better and better in their own field, it's a little wake up call to them they don't want to take. So they wait for people to fall, and that's another part of leadership. It's a painful truth.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why do you think? Because I know you are like a massive, massive influence for good online. The things
Thank
that
you.
I see you share and the things that I see you post, and it's really rare if there's the things that you share online, if it does have a negative twist on it, you always spin it. That's my experience in
Yeah.
engaging with you. And so how, like, why do you think that is? Is that just human nature, or is it, what is it that causes people to think that way, that they're going, because they're just wait. And I know what you mean a little bit, where
Yeah.
they're sitting back, they just want to go, gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because a lot people just don't want to put in the work. People, it's easier just to be told what to do, and then build someone else's dream than to build their own. And that's really what it is. I would rather now work 100 hours a week for myself than ever work 40 hours a week for anyone else. Radio station, hotel, bar, restaurant, whatever it is I used to do. And it's one of those things that we get rewarded in public for what we do in private. And
Absolutely.
and so, I mean, I could put on this show, especially on social media, like now I've got this nice house and flying horse. And is it awesome? Yes, it's awesome.
Sure.
But it wasn't just a smooth ride to get here. Has there been some luck? Yes. Has there been some investments? Of course. Am I very, very blessed in a lot of areas? Of course I am. But I also use that to my advantage,
Hmm.
by making sure that my primary goal was to help as many people as I could help.
When you've said that, I know you've said that before. In fact, you said that, I think you tagged that on the end of the email that we were exchanging. We said, hey, let's get together. And you said, hey, one of the big things is take care of those in your lead. And when you help people get what they want, it's inevitable you'll get what you want.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really hard I kind of gave you a convoluted answer to your question. People, people will root for you, but they don't really want you to do better than them. And that's the thing, is like, Could I show them the new car in the garage? I could, but people are still kind of like jerk, you know.
Well,
And
it's
that's
an
I think
ego thing. I
yeah,
think it's hard for people to bruise their ego.
yeah, because and everyone's working hard, and right now things are expensive and things are tricky, but we still live in one of the greatest countries on the planet with the most opportunity you could ever imagine. Yesterday, I got to have breakfast with the mayor, just
Mm-hmm.
Yemi and I, one on one. And you want to
That's
talk about a
crazy.
man with a servant's heart. I mean, he started off coming into the radio station when I was working there as a candidate. And I was like, there's something special about this guy because he has that feeling, when you talk to him. He actually
Yeah.
remembers your name. He remembers your wife's name. He remembers things, and he
Mm-hmm.
looks you in the eye when he shakes your hand. And so we got to stay friends. Now I told him, I said, when I get to call you Mr. Mayor, I said, we're going to go out and have breakfast. We're just going to catch up.
And he remembered.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so it was just he and I at the Egg and or it's now Urban Egg, for 90 minutes. And one of the first things he said, he goes, "This is probably the first time I've had breakfast since I became mayor where someone hasn't asked something of me." And I was like, "I just wanted you to come to breakfast." And I said, "I want to see what this level of leadership is like." And he said, "Well, after I'm done having breakfast with you, I'm going to go over to Library 21C for the naturalization event." He goes, "Which I did 6 years ago. It took me 20 years to become a citizen. Now I am mayor of Colorado Springs."
That's crazy.
Yeah. He goes, "But I grew up broke in Nigeria." He's like, "So when I hear people that say, whining and bemoaning about all the opportunities they don't have or how much their job sucks or how they don't like their boss or whatever they want to moan and whine about on social media, to get attention. Here's a man that literally, when he was a kid, they had to walk 7 miles to get water." And now he's mayor of Colorado Springs. So to say that you don't have an opportunity to lead, you've got an opportunity to lead, but it takes a lot of work. That's why you need a toolkit.
Absolutely. That's why you need to tune in.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to take just a minute while you're talking about that. I'm going to remind everybody because sometimes I get so wound up and just sitting here engaging and listening to what my guests have to share. I'm going to give the plug one more time, especially if somebody's tuned in and listening to the podcast later, and you can see it here on the screen. Make sure there's 2 things you should do. One is go to Facebook and search for Johnny Joy. And the lovely, we're both doing No Shave November together. It looks like
yes, it's last November, I think.
yeah, the lovely bearded man that's going to come up. Yes. That's who you're looking for. And then also, if you or anyone that is on a journey for sobriety, then check out SobriTree. It's SobriTree.com, and that's where you can get Johnny's app. Gives you tools. You're able to connect more with him and just different methods to be able to move into getting sober.
Yep.
So
even if you have long-term sobriety, there's a whole section of just videos, little motivational videos that deal with leadership. I mean, it's not just all about sobriety. I mean, sobriety comes from taking control of yourself and taking control of your surroundings and the life that you're given. So that's one of the reasons I created this. It's not, I can give you an app that gives you motivational quotes all day and a thumbs up and a counter that says how many days you're sober. That will help for a little bit, but I need something that is going to be like, if I'm, even after 10 years, is there every once in a while where I'm like, of course there is. But then I just look at like Robert Downey Jr. and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. All right. There's a guy that, was in jail and going down the worst road possible. Now is one of the most successful actors, on the planet. And it's all because of one decision. Well-known. Yeah. So that's just a little taste of what you can see on SobriTree.
Yeah. So definitely go check it out. Whether you're, like I said, watching the video later, if you're tuned into the audio podcast, make sure that you connect in that manner. I want to go back here for just a minute, Johnny, and ask you one of the key pieces of the foundation for leadership, you said, is trust. What are 2 or 3 tangible things? And then I think you may pull some of this out from the conversation with the mayor. What are 2 or 3 tangible things that you would tell somebody if they're moving into leadership and they're saying, or maybe they're in leadership and they're trying to reestablish trust in their business or organization? What are 2 or 3 tangible things that you would say, you need to do this, this, and this to help establish more trust with your people?
You need to one, get to know the people that are under your lead. I mean, because if you're in a big business, I've been in I've worked for some big businesses, and one of the best was when I was at Cheyenne Mountain Resort. And our
Hmm.
general manager, she's still very, very well known here in town in Colorado Springs. Her name is Lauren Newman, and
Hmm.
she's worked for the mayor's office, and then she's still a great friend of mine. And she was my boss as well as Brother Luck. We worked side by side while I was running cars and bags in the Bell department, while Brother Luck was just a junior sous chef. But Lauren Newman was our general manager. And the thing that set Laura apart that I'll always remember is she had, I don't know, 5, 6, 700 employees. She knew every single person, and she knew what they did. She knew their names. She knew what their kids were passionate about in school. So she would go department to department and not just be a general manager in her office with just the executives. So that would be number one: is get to know the people under your guide. Because if you just stand there and you say, "I care about my customers," it's like you probably haven't even talked to your customers.
Right.
What you need to do is take care of the people that are taking care of your customers, because then they will get a level of service that is just undeniable. The second I would say would be to actually work in those departments. So whether it's something where, SobriTree, where I've got, a handful of people working, with me, I like to know what they're doing, because yes, I pay them, but what do they do? How do they do it? Because I have to surround myself with people that are far better than me, and I want to know how they are doing what they are doing,
Sure.
because that will ultimately make the entirety of my business and the mission and the goal a lot more achievable. Instead of me just not having any idea how things are coming together. If someone says, "Well, I have no idea how it got here," that's not somebody I want to follow. I want
Sure.
somebody that is going to know exactly how it got from point A to point B. I don't know how to code an app, but my app developer does. So I take him out, to coffee, and we don't talk about the app. We talk about his family, about what's going on, and then he tells me what he's passionate about. His passion is app development. My passion is getting up on stages and rambling on for hours. That's what I love to do.
That's so
Uh,
surprising to me.
um, and number three is making sure that the people that work with you, they don't work under you, they work with you, they work side by side. Now, they have a different pay structure? Of course, but making sure that they feel appreciated. When people feel appreciated, they will move mountains for you and your organization, because you're asking people, if you're paying them and they're working with you or for you, you're asking them to help you build your dream. That's a big ask. You're asking them to take their life to build your dream. So if you're not appreciative towards the effort they're putting in, why would you expect to get a good product from them?
That's so powerful, man. I had to sit here and jot this stuff down just because I like to recap from time to time. And so, you know, uh, again, recapping, especially if people are listening or watching later. And so I said, hey, how do you establish trust? And Johnny just popped off three amazing points. Number one, he said you got to know the people. The only way to know your people is you got to communicate with them, have real conversations. You said it here, like, hey, my app developer, I don't know how to code, but I know him, right?
Yeah.
Because you go out to coffee and so forth. Number two, you said work with them in their departments, doing the thing, and that's one of the things I've said in the past. I think that hits home for me is you don't have to know how to do everything 100%, but if you're trying to find somebody to fill a role to that you're asking to invest their time, I think you said it so brilliantly with you're asking them to help you build your dream, that you need to know at least a little bit, 50, 75%, 80%. You need to know what they're doing. And then the third thing you said is work with you. And that's something that's so powerful. Even many employers that I've had, you've probably had, they always say that they work for me, right? Oh, they work for me. And it creates this unintentional divide, this unintentional status. And I think that's really powerful. Like, hey, you work with me. I happen to be, if I may be the manager or the leader in this situation, I may be the one that has to shoulder the responsibility. I should be the one that accepts the failure. But ultimately, we all work together because we're
Yeah.
working for the same goal. And I think that's all really good, man.
One of the best stories I've ever heard, and it came from maybe, and I'm sure you probably talked about it, and I know you've read it, is John C. Maxwell's The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
It is my favorite book next to
Yep.
the Bible.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, we're on the same page there. That's
Yep.
always, I would say a couple times a week, I'll just throw a random chapter on just as a reminder.
Yep.
So again, if we if you get anything from the two of us right now, to anyone listening, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. It's free on YouTube and it's narrated by him. It's terrific. It'll change everything for you. But when he talks about the founder of Costco. I love that story because here's a guy, Costco is a monster company. It's a monster. It's as big as any major brand out there, but his desk is on the second floor. And he has a folding table and folding chairs. He wears a name tag to the corporate office. He doesn't take a massive salary. I think it's like $100,000, and he visits every single store once a year. And that's when leadership starts there, that, from the very top with that kind of mentality, there's no wonder that Costco has some of the highest employee retention on the planet, and they're paid the best, and people love it. I've been going to the same Costco, I don't know, for 7-8 years. And you know what? A lot of the same people are there for 7 or 8 years. To work in a warehouse, they must be doing something right.
Well, and yeah, that's the thing is culture starts at the top.
Yep.
And I think so often many people, if you get put into a leadership role, or maybe you've been there for a while, that's one of the things that we easily forget. Like, well, I've been in a leadership role, so you just have to respect my authority, right? Because this is where I'm at. And it's like, no, you have to constantly be renewing that engagement. You have to constantly be renewing that trust. You have to constantly be learning and knowing. You can't just know your people. To hang on something you said, hey, you got to know your people. You can't just know your people one time.
Right.
And especially if you have a company like that has this massive retention, and they've been there, and they're all doing the thing, and they're doing it mostly joyfully and energetically. You can't just meet them one time 8 years ago, 10 years ago, like you said. Hey, I'm going to the same Costco for the last 7-8 years. We've been going to the same one. We probably go to the same one, actually. And their families change, things change in their lives. And so you have to be constantly engaged, because it's really easy to lose culture in a business. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it can happen so quickly too. That's the thing is, in the world of hospitality, which is what I did for about 20 years prior to radio. It was, either restaurants or hotels. It could take a decade to make a regular, and even longer for them to go out and share with all of their friends and family, or on social media to tell people about this great place they go and the wonderful staff there. One little slip up, gone. But we're a society that's quick to cancel if that hasn't become apparent.
Especially right now.
Yeah, exactly. In so many avenues. Even as a former member of the media, it broke my heart to see, like, after Matthew Perry's untimely passing.
Yeah.
So many people didn't look at all the things that he said, that in the years since he got sober, about that he didn't want to be remembered for friends. He wanted to be remembered as helping people. But of course,
powerful quote.
Yeah. And of course, when he passed, what's the first thing that people automatically assumed? They
automatically made the assumption,
he OD'd
because of, yep.
Yeah, he OD'd, or he relapsed, or he slipped up. Instead of just saying, he did a lot of damage to his body, and it gave out on him. Certainly that's what it sounds like as of now. But people are going to be really quick to draw that sword and point every other finger at a wrong that someone can do, when instead they didn't realize that he was a leader in that arena. Even if he helped one person, that's why I say, if I can help one person save their family, one person save their own life, the relationship with their kids, whatever it is, and I'm not going to take credit for it. They did the work, but if I can give them that little boost,
give them the tool.
Yeah, exactly. Then you know what, that I could not ask for a better outcome. That's leadership to me. When you watch somebody thrive, whether it's in business, or it's in coaching, or it's in recovery, whatever it is, when you watch somebody thrive and then go on to teach other people, leaders also, that's another interesting point that I think you've probably seen a lot of, that when leaders call themselves leaders, but then they're threatened when they actually develop more leaders,
Yeah.
because
Well,
people don't, they want to be the leader. I want, SobriTree to become something where people don't know me for SobriTree, that there's so many branches of this all over the world
so many
of
branches
people.
of the tree.
Hence the term SobriTree.
Absolutely. I picked up on that.
And people leading, and I want them to become greater leaders than myself, so I can sit back and watch and be like, look at what we did. Not I did, we did.
That's so powerful. I'm we're coming to the tail end here just of our time together today. I'm curious,
Wow.
what do you think? I know it moves quick.
Yeah.
It moves quick, man. What do you think when it comes to leadership? Is leadership more about passion, or is it more about purpose? And what's the difference?
I think you got to be passionate about the purpose. You could have a purpose, you could have a slogan, you could have an elevator pitch as to what you're going to be the leader of, and maybe that's your purpose. But if you're not passionate about it, and you could be taught to be passionate about it. I mean, maybe down the line, some Elon Musk will buy SobriTree for $50 million, and I'll say, oh, okay, well, it's time for another project. And I will, just like radio, somehow fall into like peach farming. I don't know. Like something. Can I be made to be passionate about peach farming? Sure, if I see what the end game is.
Sure.
So that would be the purpose, is to farm the peaches. But can I be made passionate about it? Yes. If the purpose is strong enough, the passion will follow.
That's a good answer. So any other final thoughts, kind of as we're coming to the tail end? I promised you we'd keep it about 45 minutes, and you've got an iPad to fix, sir, or something. So any final thoughts to leave us with, Johnny?
First off, thank you for what you do, and thank you for the Leadership Toolkit, Mike. I think it is incredibly valuable, and
Thank you.
like you said, with what I try and do on social media is put out good, positive content all the time. It's been my goal to do 2 positive posts every single day, and I've been doing it for, well, almost a decade, and it's actually proving to become worthwhile. Facebook is actually paying me now, which is kind of
That's awesome.
a fun extra little bonus. But put more good out into the world. We all have struggles. Gas tank prices are going to be the same for all of us. Jim Rohn has a very famous quote, and he says, it's not expensive, it's that you just can't afford it. But that doesn't, that's talking about strictly economics. But when it comes to the stuff that we put out into the world, if you want to be a leader, if you want people to follow you, give them a reason to. Be somebody worth following. You can't just say, I'm going to be a leader, or I'm going to be a content creator, or whatever title it is. If you're going after a title, then it's just a title. But if you're actually going to be a leader, be somebody worth following, and follow those that have come before you. I've gotten to the place where I am now, not on my own. It's because I'm an avid student of personal development, and I stand on the shoulders of absolute giants. If you think that you're the smartest guy in the room, go find a new room, because there's a lot of people there, a lot smarter and a lot more apt in a lot of different arenas than you, and you can become that leader that you want to be. It takes time, it takes work, but dang, is it worth it.
Man, that's so powerful. I had to write a few of those things down. And here's one thing: when you're saying, hey, that, because we all hear that analogy, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. Well, one of the things most people don't realize, there's doors on every wall, right? Pick a door, move rooms. It's okay. You're there for a season, a reason. My friend Scott, who I interviewed a few weeks ago, he said, people are in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, right? Sometimes you got to pull the handle on the door and go to find a new room. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And just one of the most powerful things that you just said, be someone worth following. And I think we all have that opportunity. Every single person has an opportunity. Be someone worth following for somebody else. And you said earlier, make an impact for at least one person. I think that's really powerful.
Yep.
So,
Well, yeah, make a design for your own life, because if not, someone will hire you to build theirs for you.
absolutely. And hey, one last time, I'm going to remind you all, you can find Johnny Joy on Facebook simply by looking up Johnny Joy, JOHNNY JOY. And you can check out SobriTree. Just go to SobriTree.com, SobriTree.com.
And there's
so,
also a page for SobriTree on Facebook as well.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, go like SobriTree on Facebook, connect with Johnny, get some tools, and start leading your own life with that. So, Johnny, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and take us out, my man. I really appreciate you very much.
I appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing, and just keep going. This is more valuable of a tool for everybody than I think maybe you realize.
Thank you. And that, my friends, is going to bring us to the end, to the close of another Leadership Toolkit. I thank you so much for taking your time, for investing your time with us today for the Leadership Toolkit podcast. I hope you were able to gain some insight and some knowledge from it. I know I was. I always really enjoy having these conversations with my guests that are coming on, and Johnny had some just absolute fire to share with us today. So I encourage you, please do me a favor, throw some thumbs up on the episode here. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you get notified when I'm going live and sharing these. I go live every Wednesday, 12:05 Mountain Time. And by throwing the likes on and subscribing and doing all those things, it does help the channel to grow. So I'd appreciate you very much for doing that. And until next time, everybody, be great. We'll talk to you soon.